Hello everyone, it's me, Pastor Scott Boggs again of the Potter's Church, coming at you from my home office. So if you got the next 15 to 20 minutes on, or feel like bookmarking this, maybe coming back to it another time. If you feel like getting a cup of coffee or some tea or milk or water or whatever your thing is. I was going to say your cup of tea is, but it may not be tea. Today, I'm excited to kind of go in a little bit of a new direction. I feel confident in many of the teaching videos that I've made over the last 52 weeks or so and more about, as far as laying a theological foundation. Basically, the places where I am in my personal studies and pursuit of knowledge, to explain where the stances that I take on certain theological stances that I take, and where I'm shodding my feet at this point, holding my shield of faith up and standing, so as to not cause any confusion later on down the line on things such as where I stand, on the spectrum of eternal conscious torment, annihilationism, conditional annihilationism, ultimate reconciliation, or even a purgatorial view of the afterlife, things like penal substitution, where I stand on penal substitution, the atoning work of the cross, and the wrath of God, and these things that often cause divide and schisms in gathering body of believers down the line. I wanted to lay a foundation of solid theology that I am shodding my feet and taking stands on. So I feel confident in that, and it almost frees me now to move into a direction of more personal, in this day and age, in this aeon, in the time that we live in now, to begin teaching on things that are a little bit more applicable to real life issues that me and you are dealing with, that may not have influenced the day and age of the Bible and its writers, and to the people they were writing to in that day and age, and what it would have meant to them. But the time-tested, proven, and true principles, wisdom and truth, the proverbial knowledge and wisdom of the Bible, and the wisdom of God, still very present today, for us to have better homes, workplaces, communities, hopefully nations, and a better world, reflecting the time-tested, proven, and true principles of Christ. So with that said, I'm excited today. I'm going to go into a teaching today about how a ping pong ball can save your marriage. And if you give me just 1 second, I left my ping pong ball over here. And yes, as silly as this sounds, I've seen this little ping pong ball right here, not necessarily this particular one, because I give these away frequently. If you need one after hearing this message, just PM me or get a hold of me. I'll make sure to get you a ping pong ball if it's worth saving your marriage. And the way this little guy works is sometimes a husband and wife can get into a place in their marriage to where their words toward each other are becoming more like a ping pong ball match. If you can imagine their words being a ping pong ball coming out of their mouth, and they're not even really communicating anymore, but they're just battling back and forth at each other. Bing, 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 bing. And trying basically to kill each other. I mean, more honestly, depending on how severe and how bad the marital problems and communication is in a marriage, it could be more like throwing spears at each other. But to keep that, less visually, a little bit more visually tolerable, imagine you're throwing your words at each other and you're just banging that at each other with this ping pong ball, trying to win some sort of match, and just really just tiring yourselves out and never really getting anywhere, and just being in this vicious cycle of back and forth, talking over each other, not really listening, reacting to each other, hurt and angry, rather than responding to each other calmly in a spirit of trying to get understanding from each other. And when I have done some sitting down, some pastoral care over marriages that are in this place, one of the first things I see when I sit two couples down is them just going at each other back and forth and speaking over each other and not really even giving each other the space or the time to breathe, but just ping, 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 ping. So what I do after explaining this way of communicating, like a violent ping pong match, is I tell them that they both have to put their paddles down. First of all, you got to just put your paddles down, and we take a ping pong ball, and what I'll do is I'll hand the ping pong ball, let's say for an example, to the wife, and I'll have her hold the ping pong ball. And I'll say, as juvenile as this sounds, listen, I'm telling you, this thing can save marriages, okay? I'll tell her to hold the ping pong ball and tell the husband, as long as she's holding the ping pong ball, you cannot say a word, nada, nay, zip it, clam it, put your foot in it. Just stay quiet, don't say anything, take the cotton out of your ears, put them in your mouth, and all you can do is just listen as long as she is holding the ping pong ball. And then the wife has the opportunity to speak her full heart. And generally what we do in when I'm doing pastoral care with marriages is I like to get a blank white piece of paper, 2 sheets of white paper, blank, give one to the husband, give one to the wife, and you guys could do this at home. You don't have to come and pay me anything or, for these tools that I hope are going to help your marriage. But if you need a mediator, that's fine too. We can do this. But I'll have them both write down on 2 white pieces of paper thoroughly a list of all the things about each other that they really can't stand. The things that are irking them, the things that are making them angry. I hate it that you're not taking out the garbage, or I hate it that you never tell me I'm pretty anymore, buy me a rose. I hate it that you're always really busy, and you seem like you never show me any physical attention, and I always have to beg for that physical pleasure stuff. And it could go back and forth, and the different scenarios, differing things. I found that the core issues in most marriages end up being fundamentally very similar. But the wife would write down all the things that are just irking her and bothering her about her husband, and the husband would write down all the things that are irking and bothering him about his wife. And this is for one purpose: not to stay focused too long on these things, but to get a real clarity for them to write it out. I've had some spouses joke in these sessions and say, well, I'm going to need a book. And honestly, I've never seen it go more when they really get to those things, more than a page. And maybe a good, maybe 8, 9, 10 things that are really bothering them. And same with the wife. And they don't realize really how minuscule the real big marital wrecking issues are until they get them written out and clear on paper. And sometimes spouses don't even know for themselves clearly what it is exactly specifically they are. It might take a minute here. But once we get it on the piece of paper, it kind of scales it. It sizes it down. And we realize that the things that feel so overwhelming and huge in our minds and in our soul and in our heart toward each other may not be as serious as our ping pong matches and our yelling back and forth are projecting them to be. So get these things out on the paper, then have the wife hold the ping pong ball and explain, without the husband allowed to say anything, everything on her list, one by one, that has really been bothering her and irking her. And I've seen husbands, grunting and wanting to talk so bad and starting to sweat in their chairs, and it's really hard not to respond and defend yourself sometimes. But that's the rule here. You gotta put your paddle down and let her speak her whole heart while holding the ping pong ball. When she's done being able to speak her whole heart and put her whole heart out there, then the husband He gets the ping pong ball by the same rules. She has to put her paddle down. She can't defend. She can't react. She can't do anything but take the cotton out of her ears, put it in her mouth, and really seek to listen and try to hear and get understanding of what it is on the man's list that he's doing or not doing or saying or whatever these things are that are really or that he's the things that she's doing that are hurting him. And a lot of times men, I don't know if you ever heard this, but fear sometimes men express pain and fear and hurt and anger, and the things that are bothering her, bothering him about her, she has to listen to his whole heart while he speaks these things out one by one to each other. Once we have a clear understanding of what these issues are, and they have it on paper, now we can begin to work on, I hate this term, but there's a term kind of popular called behavior modification. And the truth be told, if you realize, and you're not fighting back and forth, but you've slowly communicated, and there's another thing too here about this communication process that we can help the healing process of a marriage along a lot quicker. I've heard it said, and these are all bits and pieces of things that I've learned along the way from many different inspired authors and ministers, but I've heard it taught that the deepest level of communication between spouses, and even between husbands and wives and fathers and mothers and children, is being able to communicate our feelings. Something I heard more recently, which is another nugget to our pastoral care approach here to hurting marriages, was something you would never want to say to your spouse is, for an example, you're a horrible driver. If a husband says to his wife, you're a horrible driver, and if he even wrote that on his list, one of the things I can't stand about you is you're a horrible driver, it's like a name-calling accusation that's not going to cause the two to come closer, but it's going to repel. Like the two magnets when two married people first got together and decided to betroth each other's love to one another, and they were like two magnets drawn to each other, inseparable, Things happen along the way that turn those magnets and then begin to repel each other. And if your words at your spouse is, you're a horrible driver, that could cause her to hurt and make her want to withdraw from you. Whereas if you could communicate your feelings in that matter, and what you'd want to say is, honey, when you drive like that, it makes me scared for my life. Or, honey, when you drive up really fast and you don't hit the brakes until we're like 5 feet away from the car in front of us, it truly frightens me. It scares me inside. Now what you're doing is you're communicating your feelings. And when you begin to communicate on a soul level and you're expressing how you feel, and she has an opportunity to connect with you on how you feel, now there's a door opening for you to connect soul to soul again on an emotional level, because it's not these hurtful words that push people away, but these explanations or these revealings of ourselves and our own fears and insecurities and worries and hang-ups that gives our spouse an opportunity to get to know us better on a deeper, more intimate level. So a lot of times when we got these papers, they may start accusative and adversarial, but we'll want to stop each spouse in their process and say, well, let's stop. Can you tell her how that, when she does that actually makes you feel? I've had to go as far as to tell a husband once who was telling his wife that it upsets him that she goes out dressed like a hoe. Not really a good place to start the conversation. But what it comes down to, when he expresses his feelings, is that he finds his spouse very attractive, thinks she has a great figure, thinks she's just one of the most beautiful women he's ever seen. And when she goes out into the public, dressed, showing some of that more than what makes him comfortable, he sits at home fearing and scared that other men are going to try and give her their number or try to, scoop her up and snatch her away from him. And it becomes his anger and his response of, why are you always going out dressed like a hoe, is birthed out of a deep insecurity and or fear that other men out there are going to see what a beautiful woman she is and want to take her from him. See, so this is now when we start getting more to communicating feeling. Once they're done and they've learned to use this process, and I've had one husband, I asked, I was sitting down in a session like this once. He said to me, he asked if they could play with grenades, and I thought that was kind of funny. I got to give him, points on that one. But of course not. We can't play with grenades, because the thing about the ping pong ball is that we're really trying to white-gloved, carefully establish a line of communication again between two individuals who at one point committed their lifelong love to one another. And we're trying to get to the heart of the issues, the core issues, that have been developing and accumulating, and those missed things that are driving them apart rather than bringing them back together. And when we get there, and you really clearly do understand that perhaps something you've been doing or not doing has been hurtful to your spouse, when you love your spouse, your heart's desire really isn't to hurt them. It shouldn't be. So we have to be willing to modify some things or correct some things in our own behavior that will be more conducive and to our commitment to love and serve our spouse. When I officiated weddings, one of the things that I like to say more than anything is I like to look at the spouse, the husband, and the wife, and I like to say the same thing to both of them. I like to tell the husband that your job now as a husband is to make it your intentional business. Make it your job to find out, your ministry, to find out, to listen, to get understanding, to observe, and to seek out what is important to your wife and eventually to your children. And then it's your job to serve your wife and to be encouraging and supportive and helpful in those things that are important to her and your kids. And I like to tell the wife, on the other hand, the same thing, that your job as a wife, your commission here is to intentionally make it your effort to listen, to observe, to seek out, and try to get understanding of what it is that is important to your husband, and then to serve your husband in those things. And I've said it for years, and I've preached it and taught it and still standing on it, that if a husband and wife learn to love and serve one another, vice versa, it's a recipe, it's almost like a figure eight, it's a recipe of you both coming up. And it's something that I preach and teach and believe deeply and have seen in my own life and marriage. So this has been briefly on how a ping pong ball, and I guess more accurately you could say 2 blank sheets of white paper, could save your marriage. And I'm Pastor Scott Boggs of the Potter's Church. Again, I know that there's other degreeing levels of marital issues and so forth, and we could talk about those things later on. As a matter of fact, maybe next week I'll go a little bit deeper into some of these things, because there's just so much. There's so much that we can share on cultivating healthy Christian homes and families that are going to cultivate love and peace in a place of sanctuary and safety and refuge in our home that I can share. And I think that one Sunday morning message probably just isn't enough. So we'll just leave that there for right now, for you to ponder, meditate, think on, Selah. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments. Subscribe to this YouTube page so we can get some more viewers. Befriend us on Facebook and private message me if you had any more questions and concerns. And I hope that this will give you just something, a beginning to think about how a ping pong ball and two pieces of white paper and a pen and communicating the things that both of you are doing that are upsetting each other, and not just that they're upsetting each other on those two pieces of white paper, but how those things make you feel when they do these things. We're going to go into a deeper place of communication and see, I believe, the Spirit of the Lord begin to mend, heal, restore, and make whole your marriage again. And that's just a beginning place. So God bless you. I'm Pastor Scott. You go to thepotterschurch.com to find out more. And we'll see you next time. Peace.